Sauvignon Blanc versus Albariño. So these are two varieties that you might think to be relatively different if you were thinking of the New Zealand style of Sauvignon Blanc. However, there is a style of Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley, you might know it as Sancerre or Puy-Fumé, that drinks a lot fresher, a lot crisper, that when put next to Albariño can actually be really difficult to tell apart. So if you've been to my variety pages before, there's a section at the bottom known as Common Confusions where I list varieties that taste really similar and some differences that might help you tell them apart in a blind tasting. Here are 3 things that I look for. First thing is I ask myself, is this wine a little bit more green or is this wine a little bit more floral? Sauvignon Blanc, even in these Loire versions, can have a green pyrazine quality to it. Sometimes shows up as bell pepper, sometimes grassy, sometimes a little bit more herbal. Whereas Albariño is a variety that is high in terpenes, which gives you a lot more floral elements. So sometimes this shows up in Albariño as more like citrus blossom or white flower. The next thing I ask myself is, does the wine have any texture to it? So Sauvignon Blanc is usually pretty straightforward, even though both wines have high acid. Sauvignon Blanc doesn't usually have any phenolic grip, doesn't usually have any lees or any winemaking elements that are going to round out the acid as much. Now, there are oaked versions, but in the Sancerre style, not so much. Whereas Albariño is a variety that is known for both phenolic bitterness, which can add some grip, a little bit of texture, and then also for lees aging, which rounds out the wine, adds a little bit more creaminess, a little bit more breadiness. Some people notice this as toast or biscuit or yeasty or stale beer. But yeah, even though it's subtle, it's a touch more textured. And then the third thing I ask myself is what kind of minerality is on this wine. I know minerality is one of those terms that we toss back and forth, but in Sauvignon Blanc, this oftentimes shows up as a little bit like flinty or smoky, more wet rock, whereas in Albariño, it is a coastal wine. So a lot of times this minerality shows up as more of like a sea breeze or sea salt or saline. The wines actually sometimes will taste a little bit salty. So those are the 3 things that I look for. Regional differences in winemaking always plays in, but it's worth to continue tasting and to see what consistently shows up for you when you're tasting these varieties from these regions. If you have any clues outside of these, any key differences that you notice in these varieties from these regions, please share them below.